Ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to the Awaken Avoidant. Today is episode 56. With us today, we have Michelle Bridge, owner of MyBodyFitness, and returning guest. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to get rid of this candy.
Yeah.
It's not working.
It's not.
It's
Yeah,
too
you're
big.
like, not gonna be able to speak.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But yeah, thanks for coming back. I appreciate you. We always talk about when you can return or what you want to talk about or what you want to do next. And then I saw obviously you were pregnant. I was like, perfect time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, do you see many pregnant people speaking in the social space? Like, is that part of your algorithm right now?
That is definitely part of my
Okay.
algorithm. Yes. Like, I mean, definitely even postpartum, like with my daughter before, and then now, like, that's what I'm gravitating towards. So
Okay.
there are a lot of women out there that are advocating for, exercise during pregnancy. They are, really changing what, doctors are even, saying that is like safe. And, there's lots of women out there. But, in your community, it's not as, like, that's the nice thing about the internet.
Yeah, it's interesting,
you
right?
create your own community
Yeah,
with
yeah.
people, from around the world, around the United
hmm
States. So
Yeah.
there's lots of women out there.
And sometimes you do so unknowingly, right? Like you hear when people talk about social media and like, yeah, it's so negative and my algorithm's so negative. I was like, well, that's because you're looking at negative shit.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
mine isn't like that, truthfully. Like I like some of the stuff, but I don't look at enough of it to where I'm just seeing that thing
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I have definitely a difference between like my private Instagram and then like my business of what shows up. I mean, typically right now it's all like baby stuff, like it's like baby names and stuff like that on like my private.
hmm
But yeah, anyone who has like negative stuff out there, I mean, even just like I was talking with my husband the other day and just like not enough advocacy for like men out there and like their role during pregnancy and stuff like that. And I even said to him, I'm like, well, you might want to change what you're consuming then if you're seeing a lot of negativity. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because for whatever reason, just the negative shit, I still haven't quite figured out. I don't know, it just grabs you.
Yeah.
Because if you have, I guess if you internally have something negative going on that you're unable to address, social media kind of addresses it for you or validates however you're feeling. So you just consume by it and it's like maybe a release of sorts, maybe not. I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a space for everybody.
Mhm.
So, and there's all different mindsets, and that's the beautiful thing about the world. But it's also like if you're going to hyper focus on something, you can absolutely do that and put yourself into a bad place, just like you can put yourself into a good place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're so positive. I love it.
Try to be.
Yeah. So obviously what we wanted to talk about was how you are an advocate for working out while pregnant. And I wanted to ask you questions about it because even I had some, I would say probably ignorance or misconceptions about it as far as, do you run at all?
I'm not a runner.
No.
I never have been. I will, at different points, like even like in my postpartum journey, I started running again because even like jumping, doing plyometrics, if you're not jumping, you're aging. That's definitely a thing. But I'm not much of a runner. I will do like sprints, a little bit of short distance running, but definitely not in pregnancy at all. And it's just kind of dabbled in otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not a runner either.
I walk every single day. I try and get just my, my normal steps in, probably about like 8 to 10,000 steps. And then, I have my treadmill in the basement, but I love to be outside. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know. I always assumed just because the impact and what it looks like running, I always assumed that it probably wasn't positive depending, but I find out recently I don't think it's as bad as I thought it was.
It's not negative. I mean, definitely, like, you have to be aware of your body. So anything that you're doing, whether it's strength training, any cardiovascular, it's pretty much you want to preserve your pelvic floor health. So, obviously our abs separate as we get bigger and we carry a baby. So if you're not handling pressure correctly, then it can be detrimental to you. If you're very aware and you can hold that pressure, then you may not do any damage because, ultimately the goal is pregnancy is temporary, but postpartum's forever. So if you want to, go not back to where you were because pregnancy changes us for the better, but if you want to feel strong and function correctly going forward, then you want to just preserve that health.
Yeah. I like that you put emphasis on not going back to where you were because as we move forward, who really wants to go back in any
No, you
way?
never go back. Pregnancy changes you
Yeah,
on
forever.
so many levels. And then obviously having your babies changes your whole entire life. You know, each one that you have, it adds a different dynamic to your life. So the thought of going back, and that's what you hear so often
Mhm.
is like, you know, I want to get back to my pre-pregnancy weight, or I want to get back to this, I want back to that. Yes, you want to get back to the strength that you may have had or the endurance that you may have had, but pregnancy changed you for the better, and it's just shifting that mindset, which I think is important for all, you know, women athletes.
Yeah, it's interesting. All people, it's like me included about size or something like that. It's like we want to go back to a time that doesn't exist anymore. Like
Yeah.
that shit is over.
Yeah, and you want to like, I mean, absolutely, you can have your strongest phases, you know, going forward, you know, as you get older and stuff too, but it might not look the same as something that may have been extreme, you know, like even like I have no desire to go back to like, you know, really stepping on stage and being bodybuilding, you know, like
Hmm.
type of like physique, but I have every intention of making postpartum one of my strongest phases of my life. And I proved to myself that I could do that last time with my daughter. And, you know, so keep, you know, you always want like to get more, you know, like to get that strength.
Yeah. Some people, no, let me not do that. But yeah, you have a unique drive. I think that's why, we connect because you just have this internal thing about you that tells you to go,
Yeah.
to
I didn't always have that. I like was like reflecting on it, and I didn't have that when I was younger. I was very, yeah, I mean, I would call myself lazy because I, you know, if someone else called me that, I'd be like, wait a minute, not in every area, but
yeah.
like, you know, I didn't always have that, but something, I mean, honestly, when I had my son, like that shifted a lot for me, like, as far as like purpose in my life, as far as like just showing up when, you know, sometimes you don't feel like it and being able to tap into that place. So I guess it was always there. I just didn't know it or I didn't build on it until that time.
You're really good at this shit. I think you might need a podcast.
I like to talk.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, you're really
and
good at this
especially
shit.
about this stuff.
Hmm.
Like this stuff I'm so passionate about. And, you know, as much like as my clients, like, you know, I put them through physical workouts and I put them through nutrition coaching and all that. But a lot of it is, you know, you're connecting it to life. You're connecting it to all the things that drive you. And I think that that's for anything, like how you get the most purpose out of what you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So when
Yeah.
you're passionate about it, you can just go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you won't get me to shut up.
I love it. It's just it's amazing because I could just like hand you cards and say, here, just knock it out. You
Yeah.
don't even need me.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, I feel like what you said there about you not having always been, that's another thing that I like about you is not like, please don't take offense to this, but
No, no.
myself included, neither of us were genetic freaks. We just
No.
worked hard because
Yeah.
I saw, prior pictures of you as a younger person. And,
Yeah.
same with me, just, regular people,
Yeah.
regular body. But you took it upon yourself to really take it to that next level, it seems like, in every aspect of your life. So props to you because this is your third time, right?
Yes, this is my third, yeah,
Yeah,
final
congratulations.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
final,
thank you.
done.
Yeah. I mean, four sounds cool, but
Daunting,
like,
sounds daunting.
yeah, I mean, like, just because, like, I am really loving this chapter and this, like, maturity of, like, having babies. Obviously, there's that big gap between
Hmm.
my oldest son is 12 years old, and then my daughter's about to turn 2, and then now we're having another one. So um, it's just, I'm in a different point in my life. And, you know, obviously, like, with my husband, it's just, it's magic, you know, like when you're bringing these little people to life and
Yeah.
you know you're teaching them about the world. It's the best thing in the whole entire world. But I think 3 is where we're gonna, you know, close that chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's enjoyable now because you're at a totally different stage than you are when you had, like, say, your son or your daughter as well, like maturity wise,
Yeah,
emotionally, probably financially, I would imagine, you're just
absolutely.
developing into you
Yeah.
or who you're going to be in this chapter of your life. And
Yeah,
I'd
and
imagine
just seeing our family form, like the dynamic, I just, you know, it is definitely a special time that, you know, trying to embrace and comes with all the hard stuff, obviously, but, you know, just also being present because, you know, you talk to anybody. I mean, even like, you know, talk to my mom and it's like, it goes by like that. And you
yeah.
always see your babies as your babies.
Hmm.
And, you know, as much as you can like it's hard and you're not sleeping and you're running all over the place and schedules are crazy, but you end up missing it,
Yeah.
and then like you have your whole life to, okay, like my house will be clean, I'll get to like go out and go out to dinners or whatever, but right now this is our chapter to be, engaged in all things baby, teenagers. That's where we're headed to.
Yeah, this thing, because it really is a short window. It doesn't seem like it, but it goes by just like that. I recently become one of those people that look at my son and be like, damn, can he just stay that way forever? Like, this is
Mhm.
happening so fast.
Mhm. Yeah, I reflect on it a lot just because the big gap
Mm.
with my son, that like you do realize, now he's 12, it's just as they're getting older, they're letting go and letting go.
Mhm.
And, you read those things online, you're like, it's the last time you like held them. You don't realize it's the last time
Yeah.
you ever like held them and you put them down for the last time. Like that's, I mean, I'm pregnant right now, so anything will get me like crying,
Yeah.
but like it's the truth. And then you realize like, okay, like that chapter's done and the next chapter is so great. And they really start to become like, you're teaching them real life lessons as they get older, but you miss that time when they're just their whole world.
Yeah, it's a different sort of connection that you get used to.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask you, do you mind speaking on it? I mean, if you cry, we got some tissues over
Yeah,
there if you
yeah.
want to.
I mean,
But like, what does that feel like, if you can give me even a surface answer, to, have your son maturing into a young adult boy? What does that feel like? Just that releasing, or knowing. Obviously, you acknowledge that there is some letting go involved.
yeah.
Some people don't do that shit. There is no letting go.
And I mean, like if you ask him, he's like, my mom,
Hmm.
like is
Yeah.
always like, I'm very much want to still be a part of his life. And, I guess compared to some of his friends that like I am more present,
Hmm.
like, but yeah, the letting go is tough. And I guess because I do have like, a 2-year-old right now and you're not comparing, but you're just really seeing it for what it is,
Hmm. Yeah.
that it's hard to let go. And then obviously like, they're exposed to so much more in the world. So,
Hmm.
you're trying to navigate like the tough stuff when they're young is, it's consuming physically, mentally, emotionally, but it's consuming mentally and emotionally in preparing them for everything that's out in the world. And, doing so in a way that you can balance it and give them, you know, you want to give them friendship, but you want to give them discipline. You want to give them, the tools to be able to function in society. But it's kind of just that playing with like what's good for their personality, what's
Hmm.
good for, your family dynamic, and how much you want to expose at one time. Like it's tough. I mean, even with like just cell phones and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
my son doesn't have a cell phone and he's like the only one in his grade. And, that's a decision that we're making as a family. And it requires me to be more present in his life.
Hmm.
But I always tell him, and he doesn't, you don't get it now. I remember my parents said the same thing, like, you'll get it one day, you'll understand.
Oh
When
yeah.
you're a parent, you'll understand. And you're like, no, 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 I'll do it different. And I hope that he does look back and like, realize that he got a little bit more of his childhood and he got a little bit more of just, staying close with understanding the world, but not being thrown into just, I mean, there's so
Chaos.
much out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
especially with the phone. If you give your kid the phone, you basically are giving them the world
yeah.
without any oversight, basically.
Yeah, and I
It's
know
like, here you
there's
go,
like
take this.
parental
Yeah,
like,
but nah, kids are,
perimeters that you
uh,
can put on it and stuff like that, but kids find it. I
oh,
mean,
hell yeah.
he's a lot more tech savvy than even I am, and I'm pretty decent, like, but it's just like the generation that they're growing up in. I mean, they're on their Chromebooks at school. They're like, that's how they're taking in information even in a school setting. So they know how to do things and there's ways to get around it, and there's positive things to that and there's negative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm just thinking about the negative right now, or putting myself in, a younger person's shoes. If I had a phone at that age, I'd be in jail for sure. We would have did prison shit. Like me and
Yeah.
my friends for sure, because it's not like we were looking at this phone like, how can we bring good to the world? We're
Yeah.
just in here ready
Even
to
just
get
documenting
chaotic.
everything that you do, like at that age. Like that
Yeah.
age
Yeah.
is
You might not want to remember.
you're primed to make mistakes.
Hmm.
That's what that age is for. And, if you went back and held me accountable for every single thing that I did at that age, I mean, everybody, I think most people's reputations would be destroyed if you were going to hold on to those types
Yeah.
of things. And yes, it's accountability to a certain extent, but at the same time, it's a time for learning. It's a time for making mistakes. And those mistakes can be small, those mistakes can be big, but I think the phones would definitely amplify that. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
I don't know if you've ever talked about that with your friends, but I have, like saying like if we had phones back
Oh,
then, or
no,
if
we
my
already
parents had
know.
like a ring camera, like things would not have been the same.
Oh yeah, my friends, we already know we're all in jail for sure.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I grew up around all boys in my neighborhood, like just boys
Okay.
everywhere. There's like maybe one girl, but it was just, just mayhem, like Lord of the Flies type shit
Yeah, I'm sure.
for sure. But yeah, if you had well, I keep saying if you documented your worst moment in time, I would imagine it would be hard to grow past that. As a younger person, if this thing is with you forever, because most moments, your worst moments, not meant to be like that. It's
Yeah.
hard to move past it if it's right there forever.
Yeah, and if someone's always associating you with that moment,
Yeah.
which can happen, we see that often
Hmm.
with, I mean, even like big figures like online, like they'll dig something up from years ago and
Hmm.
they'll judge them based off of that.
Bury
And
you with that shit.
yeah, and that's a decision, I guess, if you want to be in the limelight, that like you're kind of like accepting that like maybe those things would come up,
Yeah.
but like for every single person to, have their like worst moments kind of like highlighted, and yeah, it would be tough to get past that
Yeah.
because I think anybody, like the whole point is to grow and to learn and to, you can redefine yourself, like, you know, in whatever chapter of your life.
Yeah. You'd have to be an incredible human, literally, to get past it. Because how can you? Anytime someone's gonna always point right back to it. Here it is, bro. This is who you are. This is what you are. It's like
Yeah.
I was 12.
Yeah,
Like
you'd
what the
have to
hell?
be able to pivot pretty well, like, and
Yeah.
just, really emphasize that, like, how many things that you've learned and how different you are now. But yeah, so the cell phones are tough with the little ones, but it's it's definitely part of the world, and we have to navigate it either way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hard. Very
yeah.
hard. So let's bounce back real quick. Pelvic floor. You're always emphasizing the pelvis floor. I said pelvis floor, pelvic
Well,
floor.
it's in your pelvis, so
Yeah.
you're not too far
What
off.
are what are what are some of like the exercises that you feel are ranked priority top as far as
I mean,
exercising?
priority, obviously, compound lifts are always going to really emphasize that, core control. But then those slow, intentional movements. So a lot of times when I'm trying to teach, clients, especially like, I do a lot of online training, is really just emphasizing how intentional that you need to be. So it's pretty much aligning with your breath work. That should be number one, understanding diaphragmatic breathing. And, that's something, if you even look at the way that you're supposed to breathe in labor, the way that you're supposed to breathe, like with stress management, it's all the same. So, really
Yeah.
being able to, and that's a lot of like cause of anxiety. If we're breathing high up here, we want to breathe down low into the pelvic floor. So, starting and establishing things with your diaphragmatic breathing is number one. And then just those slow movements, like, bird dogs, or like, things that seem
What's a bird dog?
simple. So bird dog is when you're on all fours and then you're raising your opposite hand and your leg at the
Oh, okay,
same
I know that one.
time,
Yeah.
while keeping your hips nice and square to
Mm,
the floor.
mm,
Something that seems so simple, and a lot of times people execute it very quickly, and like are like, okay, what's next? And like
yeah.
understanding that like those types of movements. Same with dead bugs. That's kind of when you're flipped on like to your back, and you're pretty much essentially like you'd be on all fours, and then you're doing that same type of extension
Mm,
while laying on your back, and you're pretty much just either going against gravity or going with it, but understanding how you can, keep the control. And those types of exercises, you should be holding on for dear life for those full 8 seconds.
mm.
But a lot of times, like, they're presented to us, whether it's in a group setting or, whether you watched a video and you're trying to just replicate that, and it's quick and you're missing the point, or, if you're not handling the pressure correctly, then you're kind of just looking at it as like, okay, like I got a little booty pump from this, like with the extension, but it's all about, that deep core engagement. So those types of exercises, which are very popular with like Pilates right now, those are the ones that really matter and really count. And then anything from there, you're kind of building.
Yeah. Those are hard positions to hold.
Yeah,
Very hard,
absolutely.
especially if you're doing it wrong, it'll be extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, and like the quicker you do something, the almost the easier it is in a sense.
Yeah, because you're not holding it.
Yeah, so like slowing things down, really working with your breath. That's the biggest thing that I, teach clients. And I learned even in my own journey of slowing those movements down and not just looking at like, you go to the gym and you see those ab machines or you see people on the floor like doing Russian twists and you're like, okay, like cool, that's what I'm gonna do to try and get a six pack. But those deep, deep core muscles is where everything, it's almost like an internal corset that like your body has. So, after we have babies, and if you feel like, okay, like I've lost, some of the weight and I still have this distension that like people just assume that it's forever, like I had babies, so this is what it is. And those muscles, those deep muscles, haven't had blood flow since, whether it's posture, whether it's breathing, and they need to be built back up. And that's a very quiet, intentional thing that I even tell my clients, like, close your eyes, really elongate those breaths and recognize that you feel that internal corset that not only wraps around the front of your body, but it comes from the back of your body. So you'll feel that nice tight squeeze when you're doing those movements correctly.
That's a good descriptive, internal corset, because I'm sure like most people, you can really visualize that happening from all sides,
Yeah.
this weird area.
And there's different cues that definitely are very helpful that like I know were helpful for me like in my journey, and then I like to, really present them, and then yeah, you'll like hear clients like, oh, like, and you have that clicking
Hmm.
moment and you're like, okay, I got it. And that feels different than when I ever did it before.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's what we
absolutely.
look for. Yeah.
Do you train men?
I don't train men very often. I will take on men. I will take on men like for nutrition coaching online. I haven't taken on a man in person like for personal training in a while. I did more so in the beginning of my career, um, but not as much anymore. It's really like my demographic has been more tailored to like moms and women. And
Yeah, I like that because then you can really like tailor the program specifically to these people.
yeah, yeah. And that's what, I've definitely honed in on like specialties. I mean, I love strength training, so obviously that goes across the board with male and female. But, the pelvic floor health and, really just emphasizing the athleticism through pregnancy and postpartum is really what sets me on fire and, what really I want to, the messages I want to, come across to people. So that's what ends up kind of coming my way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like your videos because every time I see them, I can tell people are really focused on like the form and the technique. Like I rarely see videos where I'm like, that shit's goofy, because sometimes you see video, even a professional that you're like, what the hell is, what's going on there? That don't
Yeah.
look right.
And it's an evolution of training. I mean, definitely in my career, I look back and I'm like, I had clients doing burpees and I had clients doing, like things that, they just, not that it always looks sloppy, but things that aren't giving them the best bang for their buck.
Hmm.
So what, I have learned, and especially with clients, is, you know, having clients understand their body. That's the biggest thing I think. And any of us can, take away from the gym, personal training, any type of physical activity is really understanding our bodies because we all have an anatomy. It's not just, yes, we come into it like, I want to feel better. I want to look better. I want, more confidence, all of that. But understanding how our bodies work is, only going to continue to serve us, especially as we get older. And, understanding how to preserve our youth and understanding how to functionally move throughout our day and then translating that into the gym. So, yes, I will always, kind of, it might look boring, but the basics and the foundations, having them you moving correctly is the most important thing to me.
Yeah, you're right. Understanding how our bodies work, I think a lack of understanding just in the general society as a whole is why sometimes you see there's people that are aging and they look like they're struggling, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And as we get older, I mean, we lose muscle, at age 30, we're losing muscle every single year. It's like
Hmm.
0.8% muscle every single year unless we're doing something intentional to combat that. And
Yeah.
then that's where our metabolic health stems from is, our body composition and metabolic health is the root cause of uh, most disease. So, that trickles down into all areas of your life where you start to have issues. And if you're not looking at root cause and you're just treating symptoms, you continue to get lost, and you continue to go down this road where it feels frustrating and you feel more and more unhealthy and less capable. And that's the whole thing, is we want to be capable as long as we can.
Yeah. You're really good at this shit. Because for a second you were about to say all disease, but you stopped yourself and you
Yeah,
said most
because that's a
disease.
big statement to make.
Yeah, I know.
And, like,
That's
yes, I could dig up some information and I would want that to be concrete,
mm,
but I mean, it's arguably most disease
yeah.
is stemmed from metabolic health.
That's a professional navigation skills on the
Yeah,
podcast,
no,
because you can say some shit and if you say that thing, like again, like what we talked about earlier, that's gonna be you forever. They're gonna be saying, "Oh, she said this and blah blah blah." It's like, it's not what she meant.
yeah, yeah, I don't know everything,
Yeah.
but the things that I do know, like, I really, really focus on. And yeah, to make that huge statement, like, because there's obviously lots of different, circumstances, and there's lots of different things that I don't know, but like, within my scope, I like to, definitely educate people on the importance of your metabolic health and how that can really help you maintain your health in lots of different ways going forward.
You seem pretty proficient and knowledgeable, and even if you weren't, the way you communicate it, you could still make people believe
Yeah.
it, which is, I think, what's going on a lot in the world out there. Like, you
Yeah.
deliver it in a way where I'm like, sounds
Like,
right.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a ton of people out there that,
Yeah.
whether you read a headline or you hear somebody say it, you're like, okay, that's true. And then, someone can, pivot and make a completely different claim, or try and, tell you that claim is false and
Mhm.
give you information to back it up. And, there's lots of different ways that you can find that information through studies and stuff. So, I like to, kind of just deliver it in a way that's realistic. And obviously, if something is out of my scope, I will lead you down a road, if I can, to somebody who would know more than I would.
Yeah, and because there's even that person, there will be no agreement and consensus even among the experts. That just doesn't exist, or as far as people and the variation in all of us. There's, hundreds of millions, billions of us.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is like a universal one way, this is that for every single person.
Well,
Like, it doesn't
science
exist.
is always evolving.
Yeah.
Like, you have to think of it that way. Like, science is never concrete, and it's always kind of lagging a little bit behind because of how much goes into different studies. And, even like if you just look at we were talking a lot about pregnancy. Most, like, not a lot of things are studied on pregnant women because it's not a moral thing to do. So, like, a
Mm.
lot of claims that are made, yes, and that's why, like, everything that you see, if you read the label, it's like, consult with your doctor if you're pregnant or breastfeeding,
Because they
because
don't know.
there's not studies
Mm.
like on pregnant women, because it's
Mm.
not
Yeah,
really an ethical thing to
that
do.
makes sense.
Yeah, so like that's why, kind of doing your own research, using professionals, or consulting professionals that you trust. That's the most important thing that you can do, and trying to, just get in accurate information as it pertains to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Back when I used to train, I trained men and women, but generally I trained women. And that's because I felt like women are easier to deal with because they don't have like this wall. They're not as guarded or defensive or whatever, kind of interaction that I
Hmm.
would have with another man.
Yeah, ego.
And yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
that part. And I find that women were always more appreciative. And I just wanted to ask you, do you get that sort of gratification working with
Yeah.
women?
I mean, I definitely think, I mean, if you look in the space, I think a lot of, trainers will say that women are predominantly like their clients, because again, ego comes into play. And just a lot of women, I mean, it's very layered in that sense, where like it stems a lot in like our confidence. It stems a lot in like, just where we feel like, I don't know, we kind of, especially like our generation, kind of went through like a wave of like, be skinny. No, now we want to be strong. Now we want to
Mm,
be this. Now we want to be that.
yeah.
So they're kind of like throwing you around, and people, but women, I think more are, they're teachable. Like, I will say that probably like my women
Yeah.
clients will
Mm,
absorb information a little bit better. There's, obviously exceptions.
of course.
depending on where you are in your life and stuff, and how much that you're willing to open up in that area, because it's vulnerability too.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's accepting that, okay, maybe my habits aren't serving me, or maybe like I want something, but do I want to put all the work in? Those things definitely come into play. But I would say overall, women are are pretty coachable, and they really like will take what you say and trying to apply it in their lives, and obviously giving you all the different variables of what's going on in their life too, if they're not executing that that following week and they're like, well, I didn't get to it and this is why. But I think the nice part about really honing in on coaching is understanding that we all have those elements to our lives, and how to help someone even through those obstacles, because they're real life.
Yeah. So basically, what she's saying is women are appreciative and men suck.
No, I mean, like, because I've met women with like hard egos too, and like where
Yeah.
they're just, you can't tell me anything that I don't already know,
Hmm.
and then it's like sometimes like, well, then why did you come to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, ego comes into it with men, especially like even I would notice that like when, I worked in a gym setting, that even just like giving someone like a tidbit of, form correction, it's like a girl's gonna tell me,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Right.
and you can see them like, no, and
Yeah.
go back to just still doing like pulling with your whole body, and then they're like, oh, I had my like third shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder why. Like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
but so no, men don't suck, but women definitely have, a teachable type of component to them.
Yeah. I had some sucky men for sure.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
shit. Maybe I was one of them sometimes, but
Yeah, we all
yeah. I
are.
just found it to be. It was much more rewarding, I would say, for me
Yeah,
personally.
yeah,
If I could only train women, I would.
yeah. Same,
Just easier to deal with.
same.
Just like in real world, I feel like women are just easier to
Yeah.
deal with for the most part. And
Yeah,
again,
women
like
are
you said,
complex,
yeah,
but if you understand, like, you really understand the person, then yeah, I would say easier in a sense of not that hard wall.
yeah, that part.
Yeah.
So what is it you said that you like certain things that you specialize in? Like what do you really focus on? Either with yourself or with your clients. We could talk
I
about what
mean,
as far as working out or like pregnancy with either one.
yeah, I mean, it definitely like translates for sure. I mean, like I practice what I preach, so it's definitely like my style of training myself is translated into how I train my clients. But I mean, strength training is my end all be all. That is where I like really really get the most out of my training. It makes me feel powerful, makes me, it's always a challenge, and I think once clients come to me and whatever wherever they're coming from as like their prior knowledge to exercise, is recognizing that you can still do the same basic movements over and over again, and it's not boring because of the way that you're executing and the way that you're challenging yourself with, whether that's load, reps, sets, tempo, all of those things. So that's what really is my staple. But also, just those slower movements that we were talking about, and how, they translate into your functional life. I mean, if you just look at getting the kids out of the car, doing, bending over, doing laundry. I mean, most times when people, you hear about injuries, is they weren't lifting 300 pounds or like something like that. They were bending over to, pick something, a toy off of the ground. And
Yeah.
they're like, I pulled my back out for a week and I couldn't walk, and like messed myself up. And like I definitely have been in that realm before too, before I recognized that my pelvic floor was weak. I wasn't, I started going to the chiropractor, started doing, a lot more stretching and functional practice, that I recognized that I was hurting myself over and over again because of my own ignorance. So I kind of, have tailored into my own training that way. And then same with my clients, them recognizing exercise is meant to not only prevent injury, but, strengthen the whole body, so that those things that you can keep them like controlled.
Yeah. It's interesting that I imagine it's happening some now online, but the evolution of exercising, because it dates back so far that most of us, we only learn to work in this one plane where we're pushing forward, pulling up, down, right, left. but lacking all the regular movements, like you said, the bending over, like the rotation, the this, the eccentric, all the different,
Yep.
mechanics that we actually do.
Yeah.
Like, because when are you really like, just specifically doing this shit? More than likely, if you're doing something like this, you're gonna be doing it on an angle this way or down this way, or just the different planes.
Yeah, I find it funniest with like, have you ever seen those videos where it's like, if we trained the same way and like did like, different things around your house
Hmm.
that way? I think like hamstrings are the perfect example. It's like, the way that we train hamstrings like on a machine in the gym.
Yeah,
It's not the way that we're training hamstrings in real life. And,
yeah,
not the way that we're learning how to lengthen and contract them and, to really put emphasis on that because that's if you're not putting emphasis there, then a lot of times like the low back is going to take over on that back side of your body. So understanding that the front side of your body, the back side of your body both complement each other, and then being able to maintain that stability through rotation and different planes of motion is by far the biggest thing that you can take away from exercise, because especially as we get older, those types of things, like, your body, again, we're losing muscle each year. We're, going through different chapters of life. And if we're leaving something underworked, weak, those muscles are typically going to be the ones that, really tense up and try and take over, to stabilize you in like a movement. And those are the ones that are going to be strained as well.
yeah. It's interesting how important balance is. Like
Hmm.
overall, that's why Pilates and yoga and things of that nature, even though these people, they're not typically the most muscular people in the world, but typically overall, they're usually the strongest, like
Yeah,
body-wise from head to toe, because they're working their entire body. Some of
absolutely.
those poses, like, as a bigger person, you get one, you're like, what the fuck? I can't,
Yeah,
this
I
is,
mean, they have
this is
like football
impossible.
players. I think there's like videos of like some like the Eagles players or something like doing Pilates, and they're like, this is really hard. But
Yeah,
you complement that with strength training and agility, you're a powerhouse.
yeah,
You
you're like
have
a superhuman.
control over your body, and that's the biggest thing is having full control over your body and understanding the mechanics of it.
Yeah, and it's almost to your detriment to have all that muscle and strength and to not have it all and not have control over your body, because I believe that's where the injuries come from.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you're just this big, strong, fast freak of nature, and you just have this machine that you don't really know how to fully operate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it lots of times that like you'll see, big bodybuilder type of guys, but they lack mobility.
Hmm.
They can't even, put their like hand, behind their head, they can't touch their toes, they can't do anything like that. And it's like, yes, you have all this muscle and it looks great, like your shape. And if you go compete, you do great, but how is that going to serve you as you get older? You're going to feel like crap because you're not going to be able to move the way that you need to move.
Yeah, it's interesting. And some bodybuilders know this, like some of them that are really in the know, because there's a few of them, some of those big 280-pound guys that can do splits and crazy shit like that, like a very small percentage of them,
Yeah,
but they realized that there was something to it, to the whole package,
yeah,
rather than just packing a shit ton of muscle on your frame
yeah.
and trying to move around with it.
I think that comes with age and that wisdom where you recognize, like, okay, like I don't feel good, like I know, yeah, like
Yeah,
I
I'm
know
human.
lots of you, you get into like your 30s and you're like, I feel so old and I can't, move and I'm sore and I'm this and I'm that. And again, you can look the part, you can look in shape, you can lift, a lot of weight in the gym and your different compound movements, but can you actually move your body? And, hopefully you take that and you start to recognize that you can change that. It's not just, oh, this is signed, sealed, and for the rest of my life I'm not going to be able to move and it's going to get worse. That's
Yeah.
not it. Yeah, but a
Yeah.
lot of us see it that way.
Yeah, sometimes things do feel that way, right? Like,
Yeah,
because you end up feeling stuck and not knowing how to get unstuck, as is the situation in like every aspect of life sometimes.
yeah,
You
because
just
it
don't
comes
know
with
how to.
changing your habits too,
Yeah.
like changing what your belief systems, changing what's worked in the past. That's a big thing is, well, this works for me, whether it's, I mean, you can translate that into, exercise and diet. This is what's worked for me in the past. Well, you're in a different chapter of your life.
Yeah.
What your body is asking you might be something different than what worked in the past, but you can use your prior knowledge from the past and build on that and still be teachable and still like be able to learn and grow. Because I mean, that's the biggest thing, adaptability as you get older.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you train any or But I gotta stop saying the word I don't know why this shit is so annoying to me.
I
Do you train any older adults? Are you training any older
I
adults?
do train older
Yeah.
adults. Yeah. My, one client I had, she's upwards to her 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, and nutrition and, in-person training. I actually really enjoy that, because again, you're not just training for the aesthetics. Yes,
Mm,
yes, there's still that confidence factor. That's still, I want to feel young. I don't want to feel, stiff and achy and all that. But you're really training for functionality as you get older. The biggest thing, like grip strength, is a big thing as you get older. That's gonna be a sign of, how long you can really be independent.
yeah.
Being able to get yourself up and down off the toilet. That's a big thing, especially for anybody who lives by themselves. Are you going to need assistance? And how long can you go without assistance? How long can you go up and down the stairs? Can you get off of the floor? Can you play with your grandkids anymore? Or do you have to sit everything out? And that's a big part of people's lives, is being capable. So training for those types of things functionally, and those are, squats, you're sitting on the toilet, getting off of the ground, like working lunges, really keeping, posterior chain, which is the back side of your body, nice and strong to balance with the front side, because balance, really gets off as we get older. So that's actually like something that I really, really enjoy. And it's the same types of exercises that I put my younger clients through as well. But you're just really emphasizing the different functional components that it's going to help with as they get older, and, kind of creating those clicking moments.
Yeah. What's the youngest person you train? You don't have to tell me your age. Like, you train any
Youngest right
40-year-olds?
now? No, I actually, my one client, I think she's 26.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she hasn't had any babies yet.
Like, what's the youngest that you could or would train?
That could or would. I've had a
Or do you have no
few.
limit?
No, no limit. I mean, I definitely like, I've even gotten approached, and just working, like scheduling things out with like school and stuff. But I mean, like some kids in my son's class, that, for their training, that, obviously, whether it's soccer or basketball,
Mm,
that you're getting strong at this age and understanding your body, you're not going to throw, 200 pounds at them,
yeah.
but understanding their body and how to build strength is, so I would take on a 12-year-old
Yeah.
if, the schedule is obviously aligned.
You know what? I feel like that is very needed actually right now, because typically they were saying that as far as weight training, that back in the day, let's say they would tell us like wait till you're like 14-ish, 15
Yeah.
or something like that. But nowadays, the kids are starting sports so early and playing so much and so often at a high level that, yeah, someone needs to come in and start explaining even how to recuperate probably at a young age, and
Yeah.
or how to handle your body or manage injuries, all of it.
Absolutely. I mean, I really take, like, my son as like, you know, I take him on just the same way I would want to take on any of my clients. Sometimes it's annoying to him,
Yeah.
but, trying to teach him, he's loves baseball. So, letting him know that, you want to be a really good pitcher, then you have to be able to rotate your hips. You have to be able to have shoulder mobility. You have to be able to, you really want to run the bases and, get the most out of that. You have to be able to start and stop, and you have to have that strength in your hip flexors, and same way that he recovers with his food intake. So I make sure that, his food intake is, his macronutrients are, in a nice place before he starts a game. Same thing with recovery, getting sleep. We take those things very seriously in our household, just because it's the way that we live. It's not just, for the aesthetic factor. But, as he's, starting to change, I mean, even this year is a big change physically for him. You're starting to see how those things are adding up, and those things are really helping him, um, you know, in school with like his mental capabilities, and then on the field with his athletic capabilities.
Yeah. Good for you. You're a coach. You're a coach,
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
Super
I mean, he'll like sometimes he's like, oh, my
I can see.
mom, because it's that age. But I think he also really recognizes how much that he can learn from that age. And you'd look back and you're like, if it was explained to me that way, not just in the way of like, oh, you don't want to get fat, or you want to do this, you want to look good. Like, it's not that at all. It's about, that those are the years that, you're calling yourself an athlete because you're playing a sport. We're all athletes if we're training, even if you're like me, you're 37 years old. But like, at that age, you're calling yourself an athlete and you are in sports. So really priming your body to be capable of all the things that you're asking it of, and recognizing that a lot of those things, yes, your temperament's a big thing in sports, but how you treat your body, it starts from the very beginning. So all the vitamins, nutrients, recovery, exercise, they all matter.
Yeah. As a kid back in the 90s, I would say, I don't know if I was doing much in the late 80s, probably bullshit, backyard shit. But yeah, I was punishing my body, having, I think it's like Osgood Slaughters, where you get the
I had
bump on
that
your
too.
knees.
Want to
Yeah,
play
and
soccer?
still
Yep.
playing and shit, like playing through that when your plates and all types of shit, like
Yeah.
things that you just didn't know.
Yeah.
There just wasn't enough information, I feel like, out
Yeah.
there.
Well, and everyone says that, oh, they're kids. Like, you have a different type of resilience. Your body hasn't had as many miles on it yet. It's like a newer car, like where you can kind of like, if you don't treat it well, it'll hang on for a while. But the older that it gets, the more that you're going to see big things go. And, you can and a lot of us do that and just, kind of chalk it up to, oh, I was young, I was able to do that. I was able to recover, I was able to do this. And then as I got older, that's not the case. And yeah, you kind of like put yourself through these extremes and torture yourself when you're young with almost like this ignorance that like, nutrition and exercise and, understanding of your body don't matter at that age, when that's a big component of, being able to preserve yourself as you get older. Because I know even my chiropractor is like, well, this is probably like a cheerleading type of thing that like, with your back that like,
Mm.
it was just, and I was a gymnast. So like that
Oh, okay.
constant,
It's built up over
compression,
time.
yeah, build up over time. And
Damn.
if I wasn't taking care of it,
Yeah.
but you know what you know, and then once you know better, you do better. So, kind of taking that, but I'm glad that I'm able to give this to my son now, even though it might sound annoying to him sometimes and he might not understand it fully. But the more he understands the body as a whole, the more he's going to be able to understand the longevity as he gets older.
I can tell you for absolute certainty that he'll appreciate that shit. I don't know at what age or what point, but yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like we
Yeah.
all do. Something about boys and their moms, especially if I was getting it from a mom like you at that age, I'd be eternal gratitude for sure. Eventually it will come.
Yeah, eventually. I envision like the 20s being that like moment of like, you're right, mom. Because I know
Yeah.
for me, like even just in, life lessons that, I kind of went back to my parents and was like, I get it now,
Yeah.
but there were so many times I fought them when I was, a teenager. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, of
again, the
course.
learning phase.
Yeah, we're just fucking hard-headed.
Yep. Very
Final
hard.
question. I wanted to ask you, so you spoke about shit, I forget the word that you just used a few minutes ago. But damn. I just wanted to ask you, what has it been like transitioning through the different phases of your life, from being on stage to times in your life where you weren't the most fit, to being pregnant, and just like emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally? How has that transition been for you as a woman growing through all that and seeing yourself through whatever lens you saw yourself through in those moments?
I mean, ultimately, growth comes to mind of just like coming into my femininity. And femininity, sounds like a very soft word and a very, like almost poised type of word. But femininity comes with so much strength. And I think that being a mother, all of us, any of my friends, clients, whoever that I talk to, like in the community online, is motherhood teaches you a lot. And it teaches you a lot about yourself, teaches you a lot about, how you manage different areas of your life. And I think the whole thing about it is allowing yourself to be adaptable and to be resilient through those times and always be like learning, understanding that like nothing is concrete, everything is a temporary stage. So, all those times in my life, like looking back now, understanding that they were temporary. And in the moment, it didn't feel temporary, whether they were positives or negatives. You can definitely get yourself stuck in a place, but understanding that being your own biggest advocate is number one. I mean, I've learned that in just this chapter of my life, and giving birth the way that I want to, do it within the scope of obviously understanding that different things come up, but like just really understanding yourself and advocating for yourself is like you are the pinnacle of, you know, your family as a mother. And I think a lot of women understand that, and they understand that they hold a very special place in their family as far as being the, you know, the mother, but you know, understanding that there's strength in that, and it's not just softness. It, you know, they complement each other. So yeah, femininity, growth, adaptability, all of those things kind of reflecting on my whole entire journey of going through extremes and, you know, kind of navigating the whole entire way. That it's just, I don't know, it's a wisdom that we're gaining as we go through life. And I'm not old or anything by any
Hell no.
means. No, but like just the wisdom, like you start to get it and you start to understand like concepts that may have been presented to you at different times where you didn't understand them. And now they're starting to click and you're starting to feel, I'm able to feel more present in moments now as like, you know, maybe in the past when I was competing or when I was a single mom, all those things like it was almost like I was just in like survival mode, you know, and understanding that like, you know, my continued being being open to learning, it has helped me so much, and putting that ego aside and recognizing where being humble comes into play and recognizing that okay, what I did in the past, it wasn't serving me, or I made mistakes or this or that, and taking that and applying it through each chapter has only made life continue to get better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting as you evolve in age, like I could see what you were trying to describe there, how it just starts clicking, you know, a little bit. Like
Yeah.
I personally, as the way you're describing, you start to feel like almost like your best self, like you're turning into your best self as you age,
Yeah.
because you're just understanding the world, and it's like you're slowing down the matrix a little bit, and just like everything's making sense
Yeah.
that was coming at you so fast before.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're slowing it down and absorbing it more and
Yeah.
being
Everything's
more
done with
present.
purpose,
Hmm.
and yeah, being present in your life and understanding that we only get one life, and you know, and who knows what's, you know, after like this, but in this life, you know, whether it's hard, whether it's easy, whether it's fulfilling, whether it's, you know, all of the things that go on in your life, just being purposeful in each movement, advocating for what you want in your life in a mature way is just where I think that you get the most out of every single thing that you do, whether it's monotonous or these big shining moments in your life.
Agree.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Where can we find you? How do we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's Michelle Fit. There's 4 L's and 4 T's. Nice and unique there. But you can reach me by email too, which is michellebridgefit@gmail.com.
Okay. What was, didn't you have another name? What was your business name?
MyBodyFitness is the name of my business. So it's kind of a play off of Michelle Bridge because it was, you know, kind of went by
Oh,
MB
MB Fit.
Fitness
Oh,
before I like started my LLC. And my body really exemplified that it, you know, I do individual training that so your body, my body is the most important element to it all, and you know, focusing there.
okay. And is there a way to reach My Body Fitness? Is it
Through Michelle Bridge.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so just jump in your DMs basically.
Yeah, DMs, email, that's the best way that you can reach me right now. I have a few things in the works as far as, you know, different, more technological ways to reach me, but those are coming soon.
Did you drop your email?
Yes.
You
yes,
did? You
yeah,
said it there?
michellebridgefit@gmail.com.
Oh, okay. Sorry if you said it. I'm
No, it's okay. I'll say it again.
cool, perfect. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you
I
for
think
having
we
me.
hit like just right on the hour mark. Yeah, 10:35.
Perfect.
Perfect. You're the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
thanks for having me.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. Michelle Bridge.
Bye.